Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
We are facing the most serious threat to public media in history. Right now, the White House is trying to rescind already approved funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, money that keeps stations like ours running. Without it, essential local journalism, trusted reporting, and podcasts like this are all at risk. If you value public media, speak up now. Visit boisestatepublicradio.org/funding to learn more and take action.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. It's Friday, which means it's time for our Reporter Roundtable. We will get you up to date on the news that made headlines this last week. And today, our panel includes Kevin Fixler and Sarah Cutler with the Idaho Statesman, James Dawson with Boise State Public Radio, as well as Nate Eaton, who is the news director at eastidahonews.com. And Nate, we wanted to start with you today. So I want to begin with a case out of eastern Idaho, which is making national headlines. This time, it's due to an Amber Alert that was issued for two teens who have ties to the FLDS. So Nate, can we begin our conversation today by you reminding folks what the FLDS is?
FLDS is a branch off of the mainstream LDS Church, Mormon Church. They have had quite a following over the years down mainly toward the Arizona-Utah border. There are FLDS members all over the place, but that's kind of where they were based along with Texas. It really hit the national headlines about 15 years ago when the feds raided the compound in Texas where there is an FLDS temple. And you might remember seeing the footage on the news of the women in their long dresses, and Warren Jeffs was arrested, and he is now facing life in prison for sexually abusing young girls. And he would arrange these marriages between members of the church, and so the religion is still alive and well. He is apparently leading the church and the faithful from prison through different revelations that are coming out often. And that's kind of the background for where these missing kids may be, where they might be at the moment.
Okay, so Nate, let's talk a little bit more about this particular case then, because these two teenagers were last seen at their home in Jefferson County on Sunday evening. So what do we know so far about this?
These kids, let me back up a few years. Back in 2023, their older sister, Alintra Fisher, disappeared on New Year's Day from their home. Their mother was a member of the FLDS until she was exiled. She fought for years to get custody of her kids, was awarded full custody, basically had to go down to the FLDS community and take them with help. And so they had been living here in Idaho. So their older sister in 2023 vanishes on New Year's Day. It's believed she went back to be with the FLDS group. And ever since then, there has been no sign of her. So last Sunday, her two younger siblings, while their mom went to Bible study, she returned home and the two teenagers were gone, Rachel and Alan. And the mom believes that their older sister, along with other members of the FLDS and her ex-husband, who is still a member, may have been watching for a moment to take these kids. She's kept a pretty close eye on them over the years, but admits that she shouldn't have gone to the class, and now she's just regretting it. So she was gone for about 2 hours, and that's when the kids were either abducted or willingly left on their own. Regardless, they legally should be with their mother, so whoever is holding them is breaking the law.
So, Nate, these two children are 13 and 15 years old, correct?
Yeah, 13 and 15. One is named Rachel, one is named Alan. They have been with their mom for several years, full custody with their mom. But, somehow someone on the outside knew when they would be available or when they could, go with them. And that's when this played out.
And Nate, you spoke with their mom, correct? Can you talk to us about what she told you? Because, of course, she wants her children back, but she has some pretty serious concerns about their safety.
Oh yes, very much so. In fact, the law enforcement does too. An Amber Alert was issued within 24 hours of them disappearing, and the reason for that is because Warren Jeffs has come out with these revelations in recent years that all children need to be gathered, they need to become purified, if that's, I believe those were his words, and to the point
Hmm.
that they might need to die, they might need to be killed in the gathering. Many people who have studied the FLDS church say that this could be comparable to Waco when the Branch
Oh.
Davidian compound years ago when that incident happened. So there are some serious concerns, and that's what the mother worries about. Another worry she has is that they might marry off her young daughter. That she could be married to another man, and there could be rape involved with that. So the biggest concern I think with this mother is that she will never see her kids again, that they will
Mhm.
put these children into hiding and that they will not be found and she might never see them again.
So, Nate, any leads at this point?
There have been um, thousands of tips that have come in. Unfortunately, most of them, from what I've been told, have not been super solid. You see somebody at, the grocery store that's dressed in a long, old-fashioned type dress, and people are calling the police, which they want to hear, but they have given specific, specifications of what these kids look like, and there have been tips from all 50 states. But as of now, these kids are still missing, and we have a description of them on eastidahonews.com along with their photos. You can go look and see. And they're hoping that anybody that might have seen them over the past few days will contact the authorities.
And there's a reward being offered now as well. I mean, for credible information.
Yeah, credible information that leads to them. The reward actually is from a foundation, the Uvalde Foundation, that was formed after the Uvalde, Texas shooting a few years ago. And this is a foundation that works to help children around the world. And they have come out with a $5,000 reward for any information that will lead to the discovery of this kids. I will say, Gemma, that this has seemed to be taken quite more serious than a few years ago when their sister vanished.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of more media exposure. There was no Amber Alert when she vanished, and now there has been. It might be because of these new revelations that are happening. And the mother of these two children tell me that other FLDS women in other parts of the country, their children are also either running away or being abducted. So it is something that seems to be taken pretty seriously at the moment.
Nate, I want to turn to another story now out of Jefferson County as well. Fairly disturbing because this has to do with a man who is no stranger to police and the fact that there have been 3 deaths on his property in recent years. Can you tell us about all of this?
Yeah, this is kind of a bizarre story. We've been contacted for months to investigate this man. I want to make it clear he has not been charged in connection
Hmm.
to the 3 deaths on his property. He has been arrested at least 6 times within the past 18 months for alleged violence against women. And those range from strangulation, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and more. Some of the charges have been dismissed. Many are ongoing. And since we posted this story, many other women have contacted us saying they were also victims and they are working with police. But the 3 deaths on his property, one was an overdose. His friend apparently died from an overdose. The other was a woman who was found inside. She was reported missing, and then she was found inside a shed that had been burned. And this happened on the same day as the Rigby Middle School shooting back in 2021. And so it didn't get much media coverage. We did cover it, but there were other things happening. And so,
Hmm.
this didn't get a lot of coverage. And then there was another, and by the way, that cause of death was later ruled as an overdose, but I don't know how the fire plays into it, and it's still under investigation. And then the third death last year, a motorhome caught fire on his property, and somebody died inside. So these are all under investigation, and maybe they are all coincidences, or maybe there's something more.
All right, appreciate that update. And then before I let you go today, Nate, an East Idaho man recently thought he was doing the right thing by helping out a baby moose. However, he got quite the stern talking to by Fish and Game. So tell us what happened and then really what Fish and Game is saying, because we've seen this before, in particular your neck of the woods in like the Yellowstone area and all of that. So we need to re-warn people about what not to do.
Right. As cute as the animals are, and as much as we may think they are in trouble, don't touch them. This man was fishing with his wife. They saw a baby moose, not a mouse, a moose that was crying out for its mom, or it appeared for hours. The couple left and came back, and finally they got a little bit close to the moose. The moose came up and started to lick him and suck on his jacket. Well, he ended up taking the moose home and bottle feeding it. And then he called Fish and Game the next day, and they immediately said, "No, do not do that. That's very irresponsible." They came, they picked the moose back up, and then went and took it to where they believed that its mother might be. We don't know what happened from there with the moose, but it is a big reminder to leave the baby animals alone. In most cases, the mom is nearby, and if not, they might be able to assimilate with other animals. But yeah, don't take a baby moose home or put them in your car.
Right, exactly. Oh, okay. So, Kevin, you have been covering the upcoming trial of Bryan Kohberger, and you've got some significant news in regards to this. Now, for a refresher, Bryan Kohberger is the man accused of killing four University of Idaho students. So, Brian, tell us about the judge's recent decision in regards to delaying the trial, which is what jury selection is set to begin July 30th or so.
Yeah, that's right. Just yesterday, Judge Stephen Hippler here in Ada County decided after a hearing last week that the trial will go on as scheduled. And so, as you pointed out, we've got jury selection for the end of July, and then the trial is expected to start, estimated as how he put it, August 18th, which some people following the case closely will realize that's a week out from what was previously stated, August 11th. But it's not a delay. He denied that outright per the defense's request. And essentially, that's in order to allow for ensuring that they get all of their jurors in a reasonable amount of time, and then they're set for trial.
So, Kevin, can you explain why there's kind of this 1 week wiggle room then? Because as you said, it seemed like maybe he had delayed the trial by a week, but he actually has not.
Yeah, I mean, he was very clear in his order that came out yesterday that he was denying it. He had pointed out that the defense had failed to meet any sort of legal justification for a continuance. I think we're going to get into sort of the reasons why they asked for that.
Hmm.
But the week is really intended to ensure that they're able to seat the jury and not feel pressured or stressed in order to get the right people. They do need to seat a fair and impartial group. They're calling thousands of people around Ada County to fill out questionnaires and determine if they're the right fit. They will look to seat 12 people. And from a prior ruling, we understand that Judge Hippler has added two alternates for a total of 8. So they're looking for 20 total people who can make themselves available for the duration, which is expected to be upwards of 3 months and into November.
So, Kevin, there have also been other significant develops in the case since you last came on the show, I think about a month ago or so. So, can we begin with the invitation to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate evidence leaks in the case? And this comes, tell us how this came about and how Dateline NBC is involved. And this also goes back to the whole issue of whether or not to delay the trial.
Last month, Dateline NBC aired a 2-hour special specifically on the case, and in that they included a lot of information that was not known to the public. As many people know, there is a gag order that stands in this case, and what that does is prevents attorneys and anyone affiliated with them from releasing information outside of the court record that has not previously been disclosed. Dateline, citing sources close to the investigation, that's the best we know, released a lot of this information. It included things like the neighbor's Ring camera video, which prosecutors say show the vehicle that they allege Bryan Kohberger was driving in the neighborhood of the home where the 4 students were found dead. That's one thing. They released information from allegedly Bryan Kohberger's cell phone, things like Google searches, additional cell tower pings, that sort of thing. Selfies from his phone they claim they have and showed images of. And so as a result, the judge noted his concern about likely gag order violations. And so he invited the defense at a hearing just days after the airing of that episode to request a special prosecutor if they determined it was relevant, and that's kind of where he left it, and what we knew
Hmm.
as of even just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so Kevin, at this point, do we know if that special prosecutor has been appointed and or if there is a magistrate inquiry going on into how evidence was leaked and if this violated the gag order that's in place?
Judge Hippler noted that were a special prosecutor to be appointed, they would have that magistrate inquiry ability, which grants subpoena power for people who may have been affiliated with the case. To answer your question, we do not definitively know whether or not that investigation has started or if a special prosecutor has been appointed. However, we do know from a case summary related to court records filed in the case that it does appear that the defense did follow through and make that request, because we can see sealed records are posted to this public court page here in Idaho that show the state responding to such a request that would have been made by the defense. In addition, we see from yesterday's ruling from Judge Hippler in his denial for a trial delay, which the defense cited the Dateline episode as one of the reasons why that should happen, because of the heightened publicity associated with the case and the prejudice that's been done to their client, they alleged. We can see that he makes reference to it, and that the trial is not going to be held hostage as a result of the investigation if they can even get to the bottom of who may have leaked this information to Dateline.
So, Kevin, I want to turn now to a story that you recently broke that is now made national headlines. This is about a DoorDash driver, so who could be a potential witness in the case. So, refresh our memories on this DoorDash delivery that happened the night of the killings.
We've long known that there was a DoorDash delivery of Jack in the Box on the early morning of the homicides at the residence, and it happened at about 4 a.m. on November 13th, 2022. Police allege, and now prosecutors have narrowed the window, they believe that the homicides occurred between 4:07 and 4:20 a.m. So we have a window that's pretty close to that, and it's long been this question: did the person who delivered the food to one of the victims, did they see anything? And more than that, who were they? Police have long known who they are. The individual is cited and referenced in the probable cause affidavit for Bryan Kohberger's arrest, which was in late December of 2022. But it left all these unopened or unanswered questions about who they were and what they may have seen.
Oh, okay. So, Kevin, I want to go through this kind of step by step now. As I said, you broke this story because there's a video of a woman who claims to be the DoorDash driver from that night. And she says that she saw Bryan Kohberger. So walk us through this video and also the fact that you were able to authenticate this. I mean, we don't want rumors out there of someone, saying that, oh, I was a DoorDash driver and but yet they aren't involved with the case at all.
So as I said, long has there been a question about who this individual might be, and this woman says that it's her. She was pulled over in Pullman, Washington, which everyone knows is right next to Moscow. She was pulled over by police, and we can see that in a body cam video that was ultimately released. I can get to that. And she was pulled over for expired tags on a truck she was driving. She was taken into custody, and then during that stay with police, she submitted to an interview and started to describe some of the traumas she has faced in her life and so on and so forth. But in the midst of that, she explains that she's really stressed out about the fact that she was the DoorDash driver. And the officer inquires further, and she says, yes, I am expected to testify at the big murder trial in Idaho. And she clarifies further, the one with the college girls. She then states that she saw Bryan. That's a quote from her, and we can see it in the video. It's a little indistinct, but we can hear it in the audio. And then she says that she parked right next to him. So again, these overlapping timelines are sure curious. You have just a few minute window difference between her arrival, delivering the food at 3:59 a.m., And then again, we have a circling what police say is a white Hyundai Elantra in the neighborhood. They allege was Bryan Kohberger. We now also, of course, have known that Bryan Kohberger drove a white Hyundai Elantra from 2015. In terms of establishing who this person is and confirming it, I vetted this through multiple sources. I had previously heard that it was a woman who had delivered the food, but had never been able to corroborate that. But we see this in these claims made in this video to police, and then we also, through additional public records, including the identity of her, we did not choose to name her at the Statesman, but we did vet the court records and everything else to ensure she was telling the truth about who she was, for instance. And then also I was able to speak with several people who were familiar not only with her name, but also some of the information that she could potentially provide at trial.
And Kevin, from reading the article you wrote, my understanding is there is someone on the witness list that is a DoorDash driver.
So what we have so far are the expert witness lists. Everything else is sealed.
Okay.
We essentially know who we know who the experts will be for the most part, with some few exceptions for the state, and we know a good majority for the defense. But what remains sealed are the lay witness lists, and that would be something that would include her. We know from the video that she says she expects to testify, and we know that the state would potentially call her. I do know from a source that her name does fall on that list, but it has not been publicly released.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk about in this case for today, Kevin, this is the fact that Judge Hippler has ruled on whether or not the defense can be allowed to present alternate perpetrators as a legal defense during the trial. So first, tell us how he ruled, and then can we break it down a little bit about what that really means?
So the defense has been saying that not only is Bryan Kohberger innocent, but also the police either were insufficient in their investigation, and there were other potential suspects that they either didn't look into or didn't look into enough. And so part of their legal strategy and their hope at trial is to say, not only was it not Bryan Kohberger, it was this person. And here in Idaho, you have to actually establish information, some evidence. And so Judge Hippler last month said to the defense, you have provided this motion to make this information available to the jury during trial. And now we need to see the evidence. And all those records, all those filings were under seal. The state, of course, objects to all of this. But last month, or actually earlier this month, just last week, they held a public hearing over the continuance issue over trial. And then they went into a closed hearing over the alternate perpetrator question. And again, just like the trial delay request, Judge Hippler denied this request and noted in what was a redacted court filing, his order, that the defense, once again, had not met the legal threshold in order to make this argument. And in fact, the defense even consented, he wrote, during the closed door hearing, that they did not meet that bar just yet. But what he didn't do was say they couldn't attempt to develop this either through evidence, cross-examination, witness testimony at trial. So this legal defense is perhaps still in play for Kohberger and his defense, but at this point, they have not met the threshold, as Hippler pointed out. And so at this stage, they will not be able to present this argument before jurors at trial.
Okay, so Kevin, if I'm understanding this correctly, what it means is the defense has not created a solid enough case to actually name other perpetrators. However, they can argue during the trial, as you said, like in cross-examination, et cetera, that there could be someone else who is responsible. They just don't have a solid enough case against someone else to name another individual.
Yeah, you've got that right. Nothing would preclude them from the ability to say not only was it not Bryan Kohberger, it was somebody that police haven't considered. But in order to name a specific individual, which is a requirement to go down that pathway in making that legal defense, they have not met that threshold according to the judge, and thus it is currently denied, but they do have a window of opportunity during trial to try to develop that information before jurors.
Okay, and remind us again about when the trial officially starts with jury selection, and then how long this is expected to last.
So jury selection is the end of July. There will be some closed sessions for just the attorneys to go through the questionnaires that jurors who are being called will need to fill out and explain whether or not they've done things like watch the Dateline episode or followed the case closely or not. And then the trial with opening statements is estimated to start August 18th. And it could go into November was the prior estimate, but Judge Hippler's ruling yesterday noted that the case will, of course, go until it's complete, including sentencing if there's a conviction.
Kevin, appreciate all of that updating. All right. And Jimmy, I want to start with you and about abortion rights advocates who are going to start collecting signatures tomorrow in the hope of getting enough signatures to get a citizens initiative on the ballot come 2026. Can you begin by reminding us of the organization behind this, Idahoans United for Women and Families?
Yeah, so Idahoans United for Women and Families was formed, shortly after the 2024 Idaho legislative session, after lawmakers once again did not pass really any sort of substantive abortion legislation, relaxing, the near total ban that was implemented when Dobbs overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. So their executive director is Melanie Falwell, and people, kind of in political circles might know that name just because she was involved with Boise Mayor Lauren McLean's campaign, for instance. She and several other people formed this group to kind of restore Idaho's abortion access and a couple other facets of reproductive health care back to, what it was under Roe v. Wade, or in the case of things like birth control, Plan B, IVF, things like that, to really protect it and ensure that it would be available going forward.
So, Jimmy, what needs to happen between this kickoff tomorrow to get signatures and 2026 in order to actually get this citizens initiative on the ballot? Because this is not a simple and easy process.
No, and if anyone's telling you it's simple and easy, they're lying. Ballot initiatives in Idaho are pretty tough to get on the ballot. Essentially, what you have to do is, if you want like the really boring technical part, it's 6% of registered voters during a general election, the previous one, that you have to get. Translation, that means they need to collect roughly 66,000 signatures across the state. But it's not like other states like California, for instance, where you can just go to LA, San Francisco, San Diego, and get all of these in a single place. You have to collect a certain number of those 66,000 from 18 of Idaho's 35 legislative districts. So really, you kind of have to go all over the state to get those. And they have to collect those by next spring in order to qualify. Not to mention that those signatures then need to be validated to make sure that they're A, registered voters within the state of Idaho, but B, also that they're registered voters in those specific legislative districts on the piece of paper that they signed. So, for instance, if you're in the North End in Boise and you're in District 19 probably, or 17 rather, if you sign on the District 18 piece of paper, your signature's thrown out. So there's a whole lot of things that you have to keep on the level in order to actually get something on the ballot.
And Jimmy, even though they need 66,000 signatures, because these signatures have to be vetted, we've seen this in the past with citizens initiatives that they actually have to get quite a few more signatures than that 66,000 if they actually want this to get on the ballot.
Totally. Yeah. So if you think back to the different Reclaim Idaho initiatives, for example, the Medicaid one, the education spending, and most recently the open primaries initiative that, some people in Reclaim Idaho helped with, they tried to get at least 100,000 signatures, or 20 to 30 or 40,000 more signatures than what was necessary to qualify it, because they know that certainly someone forgot, oh yeah, I'm not in this legislative district, or maybe they hadn't re-registered where their address was, things like that. So you're right. Essentially, they're going to have to collect far more signatures than they actually need to make sure that they qualify for the ballot.
So, Jimmy, do we know what exactly the initiative would be asking for if it makes it on the ballot? I mean, I know this is about reproductive freedom, but it's not necessarily asking for like a complete and total ban on abortion. Am I correct in that assumption?
Not a complete overturning of the ban. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
So if anyone wants to go look at it, not to mention that anyone collecting signatures has to have a copy of this on their person or be able to direct someone to read it. Essentially, what it's asking for, and I'm reading right off of it, is that every person, this is a quote, has the right to reproductive freedom and privacy, which is the right to make personal decisions about reproductive health care that directly impacts the person's own body, including but not limited to abortion, childbirth care, contraception, fertility treatment, miscarriage care, and prenatal pregnancy and postpartum care. But it does say that, that would at least lawmakers could enact regulations after the point of fetal viability, which is this kind of shifting target that was established under Roe v. Wade, but essentially kind of in that 20-ish plus weeks of pregnancy. And then lawmakers also could not regulate or at least outright ban abortions after fetal viability in the case of emergencies.
Okay, appreciate that update, Jimmy. Sarah, let me bring you into the conversation. You reported on some really big news this week. Can you tell us about this new Idaho law that bans homeless encampments?
Sure, yeah. So there's a new law this year that passed this past legislative session called Senate Bill 1141, and it takes effect July 1st. And basically, it blocks large cities in Idaho over 100,000 people, so that would include Boise, from allowing public camping. And that could mean setting up a tent in a public area or, sleeping in your car for a prolonged period on a public street. So Boise actually has had a camping ban already in place for decades, but this new law kind of raised questions about how stringently the city had to enforce its ban. And it also raised the stakes a bit. If the city fails to enforce the ban, the attorney general could sue the city.
Okay, so what does this mean then for the city of Boise moving forward, since they are a city that meets this qualification?
Yeah, so basically, the police in Boise are fundamentally going to have less discretion in how they enforce the city's ban. Previously, they could, make a decision based on a number of factors, but now if they find someone camping in the city, they basically have to take some kind of enforcement action. So that could be a $10 fine. That's something that they have come up with now. It sounds like in many cases that is what they will do. But that enforcement action also could look like education or telling somebody where there's shelter space or advising them, to move along. One of the big changes here is basically that previously the police had a lot more discretion about how they could enforce the ban, particularly if there wasn't shelter space available, then they couldn't, punish somebody for camping, basically. And available shelter space was sort of a broad term of, that needs to be space that could meet somebody's mental health needs, could keep, families together. So it was a very broadly defined term. But now, because of a new 2024 Supreme Court ruling, that requirement around shelter space has been overturned. So basically now Boise police will not be checking to see if there is shelter space available in the city before they potentially issue those tickets to folks. The one other thing I should mention is that Boise officials have been pretty clear that they do not like this change by and large. They've been publicly calling this law the Galloway Law, named after the senator who proposed it, sponsored the bill. And they've generally been saying, this goes against the city's approach to combating homelessness, where they've been really trying to increase access to affordable housing rather than, from their perspective, criminalizing being homeless.
Thanks for that update, Sarah. And Jimmy, you've also been covering the roadless rule rollback. Say that 5 times fast. Can you first tell us what the roadless rule is?
Yeah, it's a very complicated situation that has been going on since 1998. So, almost 30 years at this point, which is kind of crazy. But I mean, it's kind of one of those federal rules that is kind of like the couple that we all know that is on again, off again, on again, off again, back and forth like 30 times, right? So this was first proposed in 1998 under the Clinton administration, where they essentially took an inventory of Forest Service land that had not already been developed in some way and that didn't have protections, laid upon them. So found roughly 50 million acres of these roadless areas where the federal government was banning any future road construction, or if it already had roads in there, like you couldn't rehabilitate them, essentially kind of preserving them. No sorts of logging, etc., which really irked, a ton of Western states. Obviously, Idaho's, 63% public land almost. Other states have even more public land on them, including national forest land. So to not be able to, log or do prescribed burns or, have access for mining or, coal production, et cetera, was a big blow to them. And so this went back and forth in the courts for a very long time. And is still controversial today with Republicans as we see the Trump administration trying to roll the whole thing back.
Okay, so if this rollback happens, Jimmy, how does that impact Idaho?
Surprisingly, it doesn't, at least as far as we know right now, because Idaho under then Governor Jim Risch, got this agreement with the federal government to where they essentially said, okay, we're going to set aside some, a portion of these lands to be protected, but then also the majority of them in Idaho that were inventoried to be allowed to actually do some of these activities. So we're talking 5.7 million acres roughly of national forest land in Idaho. You can build roads, you can do these prescribed burns, logging it, etc., and left about 3.7 million acres protected. And so that is a separate agreement, even though it's based on the 2001 roadless rule. It's a separate agreement that, apparently isn't going to be touched according to USDA.
Okay, appreciate that update. So, Sarah, Ada County Landfill's methane gas is now being powered by buses and trucks. Can you tell us more about this?
Basically, the Ada County landfill, as you can imagine, has been filling up faster than planned with so much growth in the area. So it's been looking for creative ways to kind of extend the life of the landfill, and finding a home, I guess, for the landfill gas that's emitted is part of that effort. So not to get super in the weeds, but methane is a natural waste product from landfills. It's kind of what like bubbles up as microbes in the soil are digesting the trash. And if you just leave it to emit into the atmosphere, it's a very potent greenhouse gas, and it's a real problem. So this company, Biogas, that's working with the landfill, has found a way to purify this gas, kind of extract just the pure methane and inject it into the natural gas pipeline with Intermountain Gas. And there it is. It can be burned to fuel homes and to fuel cars, trucks. One detail I should mention that's sort of confusing, was confusing to me at least, is that the end buyers for this gas are these large truck or vehicle companies, but the individual molecules of gas that go into the pipeline kind of go wherever, so they could be ending up somewhere else. So it's not like those vehicle companies are using the exact gas that came out of the landfill, but more like they're paying a premium for that purification process and the sustainability of that fuel that sort of allows the landfill gas to enter that broader system that we all draw from. So you'll see a stat sometimes about the landfill producing enough gas to power 15,000 homes, but it's kind of headed to more places than just that, to vehicles and all over the place.
All right, appreciate that. So, Kevin, this week you also did some reporting on the Boise airport losing its nonstop flight to and from Orlando, and they did add a flight to Bozeman, Montana. But can you talk to us about how, the Boise airport seems to have struggled and continues to struggle with really securing and keeping a flight to the East Coast?
That's right. As us Treasure Valley residents know, it is pretty difficult to get to the East Coast, at least nonstop out of Boise. We benefit from the smaller airport and some other amenities, but that's one that we don't have. And the airport has long desired to have nonstop access to the East Coast. JetBlue Airways was here in 2021, and for a brief period, about 3 months, offered a nonstop flight to JFK International Airport in New York City. And then we also have Delta Airlines currently still offers a flight to Atlanta daily. And then depending on the period of year or the day, sometimes more than once they fly that route. But again, the airport has long wanted to be able to get to the east nonstop. A flight to Washington, D.C. has long been on their priority list, as is also getting back a flight to New York. And now, with the loss of Orlando, which Alaska Airlines is dropping because it just wasn't very popular over the winter, at least not as popular as they thought it might be, we are now bereft of any East Coast nonstop flights except for that to Atlanta. So it is still a goal of the airport. New York City, Washington, D.C., Boston, Orlando, Charlotte, that's also on the list. And so those are still the goals, but so far, besides some seasonal flights and some brief stints, the East Coast is still not coming.
All right. Appreciate that update. And Jimmy, we've got only about 3 minutes left, and I could not end the show without talking about your moon tree. So what's a moon tree?
I feel like senior producer Samantha Wright might also want the answer to this question too.
She does.
Quick, also just a quick clarification from something I said in the previous segment. I said that signature gatherers for these ballot initiatives, each one needs to be on a separate legislative district. It's actually per county. Just a quick clarification there.
Okay.
But these moon trees that we're talking about, these are seeds that were flown in this recent 2022 Artemis mission that, flew near the moon, essentially before we get actual manned flight back to the moon. And these are 5 different kinds of trees. We're talking Douglas fir, giant sequoia, loblolly pine, then some deciduous trees with American sycamore and sweet gum trees. All of those flew in that capsule around the moon, came back to Earth. And then those seeds were given to different federal nurseries that then grew them into seedlings and are distributing them nationwide. And now we're getting another one here in Idaho. American Falls High School last year got one, and now ISU and the Idaho Museum of Natural History in Pocatello are going to take care of another Douglas fir seedling that's going to be planted in the quad this coming fall, once students get back there to help celebrate ISU's 125th anniversary.
All right. Well, appreciate that update, Jimmy. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy Fridays to talk with us. We've been speaking with Kevin Fixler, investigative reporter with the Idaho Statesman, Nate Eaton, a managing editor of EastIdahoNews.com. He's actually news director. Sarah Cutler, reporter with the Idaho Statesman, and our very own James Dawson with Boise State Public Radio News. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudet.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you're going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money podcast from NPR.